My mother drank my whole life. I never saw hard drugs in the home, but I always knew that alcohol made you feel funny.
I realized I was trans at the age of 15. I would try to hide it by saying that I was just gay, and that was more acceptable at that time, and it was so much easier just to get high and to forget about it.
My biological father was an addict, so my mom had to deal with that from him, so she saw everything firsthand, starting with me again.
I started smoking pot around 13. By 15, I started dabbling in pills. Instead of taking one, I felt the need to take 6.
The first time I took a hard drug was ecstasy, and that was at 15.
I do identify as a lesbian today. In the beginning, it was not that easy.
My professional involvement with the LGBT community has been huge. I've been out for 30 years as a gay man. What has changed, especially for the LGBTQ community, is that it was much tougher to be out. And through the advent of the ability for folks to be out more readily, even though there is clearly still homophobia, there's transphobia, there's racism, there's all sorts of things that we're dealing with as a culture where we're trying to be more inclusive. And in that advent, of course, there's a pushback about inclusivity to send people back into their secrets, whether that's about sexuality or addiction or any other clinical issue like depression or anxiety.
I knew the evidence-based models worked, right? Cognitive behavioral therapy, rational emotive therapy, motivational interviewing, I could go on and on. The problem was it depended on human beings to engage that therapeutic process. If I, like I did, lost my mother in 2006 and then had to do a group the following day, how effective do you think I was going to be? I could barely talk. By incorporating the music, it took that variable out of the equation. When I got clear that music was a universal language, or, as Steven Tyler once told me, we were exposed to music through the heartbeat, so there's no defense against it, it became apparent to me to create a program where music wasn't an add-on, and that it started with the pre-assessment and ended with the discharge plan. Most treatment centers get 60 to 70% approval ratings from their clients. Our approval ratings from our clients are over 95%, which is unheard of in this industry. As a matter of fact, we just passed a totality of 1 million days clean. Utilizing the power of music not only helps as a catalyst, but it also has been attracting some pretty famous and legendary musicians who are now directly and indirectly a part of Recovery Unplugged that can be used as influencers. Richie Supa, who is my creative director of recovery, known as a former touring member of Aerosmith. In addition to his Grammy and Prism Awards, he's a brilliant singer-songwriter who's given up all of that to be a part of Recovery Unplugged. He has connected us with people like Steven Tyler, Flo Rida, Ty Dolla $ign, Clay Cook from the Zac Brown Band, and there's much more to come.
So when it comes to admitting with Recovery Unplugged, we would have to see if Recovery Unplugged accepted their insurance, which Recovery Unplugged has expanded with accepting more insurances, which gives more people a chance to come to our facility. We do a pre-assessment with them. It's kind of like a usage of their history, like when did you start using, why do you think you started using? It's right over the phone. After you do that, you send it into the doctors and they will approve the client. If the client does have more of a mental health issue with an underlining of drug addiction, those clients usually goes to Nashville. Nashville facility is more of like the mental health facility that underlines with mental health and then addiction. In admissions, what we're seeing most of is a lot of heroin and alcohol abuse. And doing the pre-assessments, you hear people that overdose 6, 7, 8 times. People that are overdosing on alcohol and Xanax. That's what you mostly get. And the ages range anywhere between 18 to 65. It starts off with marijuana, you know, and the marijuana isn't strong enough, and then it goes to pills, and then the pills aren't strong enough, or they're too expensive. And then there's heroin, which is the same strength as a pill, maybe even stronger, and 10 times cheaper. You get these phone calls of children who are overdosing. You're getting calls from parents that are begging us to save their child's life because they're 19 and they've overdosed 4 times and they're terrified they're gonna lose their kid. You know, or you get those phone calls of a child whose mom or her dad overdosed and they don't want to end up like their parents. They want their life back. Those emotional phone calls, you know, it sometimes takes a toll on you a little bit. You know, I have a heart and I have so much empathy for clients that call that want it so badly, and I can relate to overdosing myself and just wanting it to stop.
The thing that drew me specifically to Recovery Unplugged was the dynamic approach that they have to treatment, substance abuse treatment. They took me through the facility, you know, after the interview, and I got a chance to see the stage where like all the magic happens on Friday. And I was like, oh my God, I want to be here. Having a program that really encourages participation and not the seated position with, you know, taking the cotton out of your ears and sticking it in your mouth, but more putting a mic in front of your face and encouraging someone to speak up. I've never seen a program like that before. You know, I told my dad one day, I was like, yeah, I really like this whole therapy thing. I want to get so good to where I can like reach inside someone's chest and press a button and like make all their walls fall down and like cry immediately. And he was like, son, I've been doing this for 35 years and I still haven't found that magical button. Recovery Unplugged found that. They actually have found that music actually helps create that safety. When you come out, there's this struggle for identity. There's a struggle to understand not just oneself, but how relationships should happen, how you're supposed to relate to society. When you get into recovery, there's a voice that has to be gathered, determined, derived rather quickly, and that looks like being honest with yourself, being able to say, I have an issue, I have a struggle, I have a challenge being with myself. Everybody else has told me that the way that I deal with my problems or the way that I am is not okay. I need to try and find a way to actually be okay with me. Because when somebody says, I want to play you my favorite song, and it sounds like the next best disco beat at one of the local bars, like it's like, hey, you know what? I like that song. I think I might know where you got it from, and I'm cool with that too. And all of a sudden, like, you have people just accepting your music, which is something that we kind of hold near and dear to our hearts anyway, right? So now you have people seeing you, and it's okay.
This is what I knew, psycho work, like you sit in a group and a therapist or a group facilitator tells you what's not good and what you should do, and this is the path you should stay on. Then you come to Recovery Unplugged and it's so not that. First of all, I'm not a musician. In the beginning, I was like, oh, am I supposed to be here? It wasn't about that. You didn't have to be talented musically. It was about how music helped you and touched your life and possibly kept people clean. How we felt feelings when we heard a song.
Even before I actually came into Recovery Unplugged, when I was on the phone with them, they started asking me questions about the type of music that I liked, who my favorite artists were, what some of my favorite songs were. And at first I was kind of confused, but I was like, it's a recovery program with music, so it makes sense. And then when I got here, they offered us like these little MP3 players, and they had some of my favorite songs on there. You know, they personalized it and they gave me music to listen to while I'm going through stuff, you know, in between groups. You know, like we would have groups about certain songs that mean something to us and explain the meaning behind it.
I've utilized music specifically in my romantic relationship where we connect through music when we're not communicating well through words. Yeah, I use it for everything now. It's the greatest way for me to express myself.
From the beginning, it was like they knew that music is a way for healing for some people, you know, and for me it was, I got through a lot of dark times here because of that little MP3 player that they gave us.
The way that I find hope in regards to hearing about different trends that come along or different challenges that the LGBTQ community has, or just, let's say, the American society has, is resilience. We have to rely upon things that we know work, the empirical evidence behind counseling, behind recovery work, behind steps. I will always find hope from the standpoint that therapy works, 12-step programming works, and just being genuine and honest with people.
Getting clean and recovering has given me everything that I thought drugs would have. You know, I believed that as long as I stayed high, I wouldn't feel the pain or the trauma that I had been through. I felt that as long as I stayed high, anything that happened around me didn't matter. And I know that other people relate to that. And so I think that a lot of times, and for myself mainly, is when I got clean, I didn't think anybody had been through what I had been through. There's many of us out there who have gone through it, who went through it, who want to go through it, who have been through it, who know somebody who's been through it. And that's why people like myself stay clean and sober, because I want to help another person, A, and because I know I'm not alone anymore. I was so alone in the world for so long, at least I felt that way. Using drugs isolated me to my core and brought me to a miserable place and a bottom that I didn't know was possible for someone like me.
A message I would give to somebody who's still struggling is just don't give up. I was afraid to tell the truth about what I was feeling for so long because I was in fear of other people judging me. There's gonna be those days when you feel like it's the end of the road for you. If you need it, don't be scared. It can be the biggest and most proud moment of your life to ask for help.
It's a scary process, but it's so worth it. If you stop fighting and you do everything you don't want to do, the outcome is absolutely beautiful.
The reality is, in addition to seeing clients come through our facility and maintain consistency in their clean time and/or sobriety, that's the goal. Why do people do drugs? Because it feels good, right? Like, I'm not faulting anybody. We just have to figure out other ways on how people could feel good, potentially breaking the cycle for addiction for decades to come.
Start your treatment today and call 855-409-8036 or click the link in the description.